First of all, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I'll say some introductory words, but I'll first let our program chair, division chair, Louise, say some words.
Right, thank you. There was a little bit of an echo when you entered the room. If you could please just mute your microphones. All right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are, and welcome to this session on attending AOM as a global scholar. I am sure this is going to be a very interesting discussion. We're going to hear from the distinguished panelists some tips and practices from their experiences about what is a good way to attend this very overwhelming big conference called the Academy of Management, which is of course taking place in Chicago this year. My name is Louise Morse. I am the division chair of STR, and I'm very happy that you're joining this session. I'm very grateful to the panelists for being here to share their experiences, and of course to Thomaz Teodorovicz from Copenhagen Business School, who's organized this session, and also to Andy Wu and the Membership Engagement Committee, who's hosting this session. So thank you very much. And I'll hand over now to Thomaz. He's going to introduce the session and the speakers.
Perfect. Louise, thank you so much for the kind words, and thank you everyone for joining, whether it's late in the afternoon, around lunchtime, early in the morning. I feel like we're trying to cover all the options here because that is the reason why we're having the session on the AOM as a global scholar, tips and best practices on how to improve your AOM experience. So this event, which we'll count with the words and the wisdom of Cedric Gutierrez from Bocconi University, Leandro Nardi from HEC, Perez, Lourdes Sosa from London School of Economics, and Juan Santaló from Yale University. The idea of this event is precisely to have this perspective on how can you benefit from the AOM as a global scholar, as either a junior scholar who is attending AOM for the first time, or as a scholar who is based in a region that usually has difficult access to AOM, and that's the reason why it's the first time or one of the first times you're attending an AOM. You still need to build your network, and you're trying to learn how to get the most of a potentially overwhelming but very interesting event that we have every year. So during this session, we were fortunate enough to count with 4 distinguished panelists and who accepted the invitation to share their experience as global scholars, as scholars who got their PhD in Brazil, in France, in the US, and then they moved around to work in other countries, having this very global perspective, and how they went through the AOM experience and how they thought was a good way to engage with this event. So the way that the session is going to work is the following. So we're going to have first, each of the distinguished panelists will have a remark around 10 minutes, in which they're going to share their best practices on how to benefit from the AOM, what can you do, what you should not do, how you organize your scheduling, what type of events to attend. And then after their presentations, we're going to open up to a Q&A. In the middle of their conversations, please feel free to add questions in the chat. We can go through them during the Q&A session. And the idea is to be a very informal and safe space. So feel free to ask your questions. Some of the panelists are going to use slides, some of them will not use slides. The idea is really to be a very informative session that will help you take the most out of the AOM in Chicago this year and the many AOMs to come in your career. So with that, I'm going to pass it along to our first speaker, Cedric Gutierrez from Bocconi University.
All right, so I will try to share. I created a few. Can I share? Okay, yeah. You should see my slides, right? Yeah, all right. So thanks a lot for the invitation. It's a pleasure and an honor to be with you today and to talk about my experience at AOM. So the way I thought about it is basically to go back in time and think about what was my first time at AOM, some of the mistakes that I've made, and what I would do if I had the chance to go to AOM for the first time again. So I think this is something that came in the pre-discussion between all of us. AOM is really a different beast compared to all the other conferences that you could attend, or at least for me, I'd never been to a conference like this before. I had attended some smaller scale conference, but nothing comparable in terms of size, number of sessions, diversity, people spread across a city. So it was basically, if I had to summarize my experience, it was exciting. It was certainly a little bit intimidating, and to a certain extent, it probably still is. And it was overwhelming, both during, before, and after the event. So. I certainly, I think I was not really prepared, and I made certain mistakes that prevented me from fully enjoying the conference. And I really think about it in retrospect. Now, I mean, now I've been in the job for a few years. I've been to many conferences, some also smaller scale, and I came to understand what I really enjoy at conferences and why this was a problem at the time. In particular, I really enjoy being part of a community, be able to exchange ideas with colleagues, have the opportunity.
I'm actually not going to Migros because.
Sorry.
Feel free to proceed. I think someone just unmuted themselves.
All right, no problem. And having the opportunity to meet the same people time and time again to really create stronger connections. And I didn't feel I had this during my first AOM. I think the problem was basically because, first of all, I was not prepared. So I was used to conferences where you could have a quick look at the program the day before, the night before, even the morning before the conference starts to decide what session to attend. This was really a bad idea. You need much more preparation for the Academy of Management. You need to look to have a good look at the program ahead of time and to really schedule plan very carefully your schedule in order to make the most of the conference. I think another problem that I had is that I was probably far too ambitious in terms of what I wanted to do. And so what I listed in this slide is basically all the different divisions. I believe there are 26, and all the places, so in purple and in black, where the conference will take place. And so what this means is that there is a huge diversity and a huge potential to see many different things in many different places. However, this created, in my case, some problems. First, some problems of logistic, like moving from one hotel to another one. And also, I think I spread it a little bit too thin in terms of the divisions. I saw presentations from STR, entrepreneurship team, some methods and other diversity groups and other divisions, which prevented me from really feeling that I was part of a community. And I will come back to this later. And finally, I think I focus far too much on paper sessions, and they are great. And I did not consider enough other events at the conference that I think have a lot of value, such as the PDWs or some of the social events or some of the parties. So what would I do if I had to do it again? First of all, I would define very clearly my objectives. So I think it's important to know what you expect to gain out of the conference. Are you planning to learn about a certain topic, about a method, about skills? Do you want to meet certain people? Is it important for you to feel that you are part of a community, and what community? Are you looking for a job? And this will define basically your AOM. And AOM could be many different conferences. And so here, I think it's important to talk about the PDW. I listed a few, I took a few screenshots on the right. So if you're interested in topics, methods, skills, they are like basically PDWs that cover almost everything that you want. Like it's a method. You want to learn computational methods for strategy research, you will find a PDW about it. You're interested in emotions, you will find a PDW. So if you're interested in learning, you can take advantage of this, but you could also be interested in building your small community. So perhaps you're already knowledgeable about emotions in strategy, and this is a great opportunity to meet people who are really interested in one specific topic, and we will be focused on this. And the great things about the PDW is also that it's very interactive. So you will have potentially more opportunities to mingle and network with people interested in the same topic than in a paper session. I want to say also, like, if you have the opportunity to go to a junior faculty paper development workshop, this is really like a gem. I've been trying to go to the STR one every time I went to AOM, and this is absolutely great. So you are matched with a senior faculty who will read your paper and give you detailed feedback about your work. And you will also be matched with another more junior faculty. So we will also have to read your paper and give feedback. And of course, you will also have to give feedback to this person. So it's a great way to create a network of different level of seniorities, but also to get feedback on the paper. And this is something I would highly recommend. So the second advice that I will give, at least to myself, I understand that, you know, we're all different, but it would be to be a bit more focused. So if I had to do it again, I would probably try to focus on 1 or 2 divisions. At least most of the sessions, I will try to focus on a restricted set of divisions and potentially also a limited list of topics. And the reason for me why I would like to do this is really to be able to build my network and feel part of a community. I do feel that it's sometimes easier at smaller conferences to do this, but I thought a lot about it those days, and I think it's actually not a fault of the conference; it's a fault of the way we organize our plan. It's perfectly possible to actually stay quite focused within a certain sub-community at the Academy of Management, but it requires a little bit of organization ahead of time. Also, something that I wanted to say for more junior scholars is feel free to contact some people if you are ahead of time. If there's a certain person that you would be interested in talking to about a certain topic, don't be shy. Just drop them an email. It happened to me to a few times to receive an invitation to have a quick meeting, a coffee at the Academy of Management, and this is usually people are quite open. And positive about such kind of initiatives. So this is also a way you could create your network. The third point I wanted to talk about is networking, and there's different ways of seeing networking, and I don't consider myself as an expert, far from this. But I think there are already many ways of networking at a conference like the Academy of Management. Large social events are great, but I would say smaller ones are probably even better. So what I would try to focus on would be some smaller networking events where you would, because of the size of the events, you would have more opportunities to mingle and exchange with other people. So here I listed some, let's say, large-scale social events, such as Entrepreneurship Division social event, but there will be some events such as the team breakfast or perhaps a morning meditation or a run, where there will be a much smaller number of people attending it, and this would give you more opportunities to connect. I remember the visit of I think it was the Civil Rights Museum in Atlanta, and I think this was really. It was a smaller scale social event, and that was great. First, the event itself was great, but also it really gave me the opportunity to talk to people I would never have talked to in a more relaxed environment. And networking is not only about social events. I think it's a great thing to ask questions during presentations and perhaps have a quick chat at the end of a session if you are really interested on a certain paper, or if you want to provide further comments or suggestions to one of the presenters. And I think this is maybe a little bit easier for someone entering the job than going to one of those very large social events and just approaching someone without any prior introduction. So I would say, like, yeah, consider networking in a broad way. The thing that I also wanted to talk about is having the right expectations and attitude. I've been at the Academy as a presenter, as an attender, but also I've been as a, let's say, recruiter. So I've been on the recruiting side, or at least interviewer side. And I think it's important to understand what you want to get out of those short networking opportunities that you will have at a party. Some people will probably talk about it later, and having the right attitude. And so here, what I would say is that giving a recommendation to my past self would be start short and be curious. What do I mean by this is that you will talk to people who are not expert in your field, who have limited time, and they also have their own agenda. Perhaps they are at the party because they also want to talk to some of their friends, and they would be happy to meet you and discuss with you. But perhaps they don't have like half an hour to talk in detail about all the chapter of your dissertations. And the reason why I'm saying this is because this happened to me on the other side, to be cornered and to be presented a very long presentation about a dissertation about half an hour. And I don't think this is really the right way to approach someone. I think it's better to start with just a elevator pitch, 1-2 minutes, you present your work. If the person is interested, then the person will basically ask you more. And if not, they would still perhaps just remember a few keywords, and this will be helpful also for you to create your network. And be curious, also ask about what other people do, and don't just focus on what you do. And finally, about the presentation, I would say keep it simple. Again, going back to what are your objectives. Is your objective to get in-depth detail about your paper, perhaps, or but maybe what you want is people to understand broadly what you are doing in a simple way, to be able to put a few keywords on your work, or just to be a conversation opener for the once the conversation is the presentation is done. So just I would advise myself, keep it simple. And finally, remember to enjoy. We have the chance to be in a great profession. It's really just a very fun event. So have fun at the academy.
Cedric, thank you so much. I feel like you probably gave a lot of tips that will lead to some questions about networking and treating scholars as humans, not as machines, which I think it's important. But now we're gonna hand it over to Leandro, and we're gonna keep Q&A at the end, just so everyone who joined slightly late. So Leandro, take it away.
Thank you, Thomaz, for organizing this. Thanks a lot, Cedric, for the presentation. It was very broad and comprehensive, so I'll try not to be too repetitive. If I try to do a similar exercise as Cedric and then look back at what I would do differently today, thinking about like my first AOM, which was in 2019, actually in Boston. I think the first thing I would definitely do differently, and Cedric touched on this, is really about the preparation, right? So I'm not myself too organized, so I prefer, and I also see some value in going a little bit, not with the schedule, not too filled. So if you have like more space in your schedule, you also have opportunities to do things that are not really you might not be able to plan ex ante, and there's like these types of interactions can also be quite valuable. But one thing that I would try to do more, and I've been doing more and more since I continued to go to the AOM, but I definitely didn't do at first, is to actually search for the people with whom I want to speak, or the people that I want to see speaking, right? So for me, a huge value that a conference that like AOM, for example, can give to us is to actually to give us the opportunity to understand how important people in the field, so like how the big names, like gatekeepers or like renowned scholars, people who are really who really have the capacity to move the field, so editors, reviewers, and so on, how they think about the topics that we're working on, right? And so one thing that I've done over the years, and which I think is really valuable, is to look for these people in the program. So I'll just think about the papers I'm working right now. Who are the main folks out there whose ideas I would like to know, and then I'll just look for events, for PDWs, but also for panels and symposia, especially where these people might be speaking. So they might be presenting a paper, or they might be just attending as a panelist. And I feel that especially the panels can give you very deep ideas on how these people think about a topic that might be relevant to you. So I think a conference like AOM can be or can, to some extent give you pretty interesting opportunities to get a sense of how these important scholars are thinking about the topics, right? The topics that matter to you, given your research interests. So this is something that I definitely recommend people doing, and I do it myself a lot. I also do a similar thing, but using more keywords rather than people's names, right? So in my case, for example, I work at this broad intersection of strategy and social impact. So I always open the program and I throw in some important keywords for me. So like, for example, social responsibility, social impact, sustainability, these sorts of keywords that resonate with me. And then from the results, I usually filter in the divisions that I attend more, which are basically STR, SIM, SIM, and ONE. I then filter the events that interest me more. I think that's, even if this is really simple, doing the ex ante can really increase the value or how much value you can derive from being at the conference. So I always try to pre-select at least a couple of panels and a couple of symposia to attend in the narrow topics that really interest me. So I think that's a strategy that, for me at least, has worked over the years. Now, one thing that I have not explored, especially in the beginning, are all these events that the AOM itself has to actually help first-time attenders and also early-stage PhD students navigate the academy, right? So a couple of years ago, I spoke in a panel which was basically within a PDW, which took place during the whole day, the whole first day of the conference. And the main purpose was basically to help first-year PhD students navigate the academy, right? So I think it's like an all-academy event. I think everyone can participate, or they can try to participate at least. And so I would strongly recommend, if you are like a first-time attender or a very early stage PhD student, to try and go for these events. My memory of that specific event is that people would see throughout the day a bunch of different presentations talking not only about the academy itself, but also about career, about how to think about your dissertation, how to approach networking. And most importantly, they also give you an opportunity to meet your cohort, right? So I feel that the folks who enter in the same year as you in the PhD, they will continue to be your colleagues during your whole career, right? So the sooner you actually meet your cohort, you meet these people, the better it is for you. They become co-authors in the future. They'll probably be your reviewers, but also they can just become your friends, right? But I feel that these events focused on early career PhD students can be really, really helpful for that purpose. And if not, this all academy events, do try make your best effort to be in PDWs. So I think PDWs, like Cedric said, they can be very, very powerful, and not only for junior faculty, but also for PhD students. The other point is that something that I've done already also is trying to leverage the fact that I am, a foreigner in a way, right? So the academy is usually takes place in the US, although it's going to Copenhagen next year. But as a Brazilian, what I did try to do before was to actually get to know people, from Brazil, who would be attending the conference too. So I already had a couple of friends, Thomaz being one of them. But I also took the conference as an opportunity to meet other people from Brazil, studying, in different places and different institutions, some of them in Brazil, others outside of Brazil. And at the time for me, this was pretty valuable too, because I was doing my PhD in Brazil. So we were kind of if you are farther away from Europe or the US, you are naturally a bit more isolated. So building these connections and then perhaps using your own nationality to do that turns out to be or could be very valuable. And to me, it has been really valuable. I think these are like the main hints that I would have, main recommendations. And I look forward to talking more and taking up questions in the Q&A. Thank you.
Leandro, thank you so much for sharing. And I just want to reinforce that as Brazilians, and Leandro and I were in the same cohort in the PhD. So we're in the first cohort of a new PhD program in Brazil. So we were as outsiders as one can be. And that's why, and Leandro was very successful in building his career. So that's one of the reasons we invited him to talk here. So really pay close attention to his words. So with now that we're going to, so thank you, Leandro, thank you, Cedric. Now we're moving to the post-tenure experience of the AOM. So we're happy to invite Lourdes Sosa. So Lourdes, please take it away.
Thank you, Thomaz, and obviously thank you for the invitation. So I don't want to repeat much information because the core of the information has been given, and I'm sure we want to leave time for Q&A, which will be very useful for everyone. But can I just come back to a few of the ideas that my colleagues have introduced? One of them is just, Cedric ended up with just enjoy it. So I think it's very important that you keep in mind that joy is user-centric, right? And so whatever you believe is what's going to bring you enjoyment of the meeting, that is probably your best first step. The first time I went to the academy as a PhD student, I remember all I wanted was to see some of my favorite authors in person, right? I mean, Connie Helfand wasn't visiting MIT at the time, at least not that year. And so I just thought I want to see her present in person. And that was one of my listed activities. And then when I saw her present, check, I achieved what I wanted. That later on moved on to, I just really want to have feedback on my research. And that is different now. That takes us to less is more, right? You have to prepare significantly in order to say what you wanted to convey in very few minutes. And so of course that changed at being my goal. I'm gonna now assume that many of you want to do more of the networking activities that have been mentioned before. And especially because if you see yourselves as this image of the global scholar, then I am guessing part of the reason why you're spending time on traveling is because you want to make connections. So things that I wish I had done before. Well, I mean, if you're going to make connections, you have to try to single out what it is that you want to communicate in these connections, because after all, the conference can actually be a matching process. I mean, you are looking for someone who's doing some research that is complementary to yours, and you would wish that you are complementary to somebody else's research. So there is no substitute for having great research skills. I think we can all agree on that. Some people would want to network on the basis of having a great, unique data set. But the only way that you end up with a great unique data set is because you had the research skills to realize that that data was unique for some purpose. And so clearly nothing is going to get us away from, you have unique access, you have unique data, you have a unique perspective on some area of research. The only way that you find that about your work is that you have great research skills that you invested on developing. But once you get there, I wish I had done much more earlier on of just finding people I think that would be perfect complements to my research and just going in the academy to their presentation, sitting down to take notes on how they're building their current agenda. And then at the end of that presentation, approaching them to explain what I do, what I would be available to share, how we could continue a conversation. To give you examples, I have had that conversation before. It just so happened that we were building a conference on some area of biotech research. And in the academy, a person approached me to say, I'm based in Australia, I have read your research, and I also do biotech, and I think we have a very similar take. You know, can we stay in touch? And we did stay in touch, and I actually then reached out to her to say, look, the conference we're building, we want to make a panel that is multi-region, and you are clearly in the topic and in Australia, would you find the time to join us? And she joined. The same has happened with other conversations where people explain. I mean, I recently visited Copenhagen too. We're all talking about Copenhagen these days. And one of the PhD students, over conversation, we were talking, and then at some point he mentioned, my master's before this PhD program I did in Africa, in Nigeria. And so I suddenly thought, oh, do you still have contacts? Because I am looking for contacts in sub-Saharan Africa. And so he has a network. And then I just said, please, can we stay in touch? Right? He's now graduating, going to a job in the US, but can we stay in touch? This would be a great way to try to build some complementarities. So, I mean, can I just, highlight the fact that, of course, you have invested in your research skills. It is on that basis that you can pin down what is it that you think would be complementary to others and that you would find complementary to your agenda by approaching other researchers. At the same time, I mean, it is a matching process. So I think that we should all go into all of these conferences with the state of mind that everyone's trying their best. And sometimes you approach them and they might say, we effectively have a grant that we need to make multi-country. Do you want to join us? But sometimes they don't. They just don't have a project that needs more people, or they are going to be on sabbatical, or there's just no way to connect. And I think that if we all keep an open mind on the fact that better to reach out and try, and then to accept the fact that, well, sometimes just people don't have a project that matches with yours, I think it's going to be a much more productive networking experience. With that, I think I'm gonna leave it at that and just wait for questions at the end. Yeah.
Perfect. Lourdes, thank you so much for your remarks. So I feel like everyone in the global community can appreciate that there is room for bringing your own research skills and your own uniquenesses when you talk to senior scholars from that are also based at AOM. So thank you for sharing, Lourdes. And with that, I'm gonna hand it over to our last but not least speaker, Juan Santaló from IE. I'm gonna make him as a spotlight.
Okay, so
Juan,
thank you
take it
so
away.
much. I'm sorry. Thank you, Thomaz. Thank you so much for the invitation. The good thing of being the last, right, is like I can see we have converged. So I agree with all the very interesting advice that has been said. So it's hard to say something original. So I don't contradict, right? I will try not to be repetitive as it was said. I'm telling you a bit my experience and some thoughts about the academy during all these years I've been going to. Right. So generally speaking, right. So I agree with Cedric, right. So my biggest mistake was with time at the beginning. I was focused especially on the academic part. Let's say paper sessions. Paper sessions are important, right, but they are not the only thing. And clearly at the beginning, I thought the only thing important was the paper sessions, and I was kind of disregarding the social events. Well, I think they are important. But let me tell you, right, not to be repetitive, some thoughts about why they are important, right? And maybe it's obvious, right? But maybe it's something that I didn't know when I was starting, or I didn't think about the implications. So the idea is like, we're in the business of producing knowledge, right? But this knowledge and advancing knowledge is not done by individually, each one of us. It's the community that does it. This means this is not just, this Greek philosopher, I think Archimedes, I don't know how to say it in English, that alone in the bath discovers an idea, eureka, right? And has this great push, right? The way that it works, at least for 99.9% of us, is like little by little, incrementally, the community gets to know something better. And these are the implications for the academy, right? Because as has been said by all my three speakers that have preceded me, the important thing is getting to know how the community is thinking about knowledge. And this, if you think more selfishly, right, for your career is going to depend on how the community evaluates your contributions and your thoughts. And therefore, right, one of the key things when you are starting as a young PhD student or young assistant professor, international scholar going the first time to this type of events is a fantastic chance to get to know how the community think about issues, right? And all these issues, they are not hard information, right? So yes, you can read the articles, yes, you can read the textbooks, yes, you can read the chapters, yes, but it's very hard to come along how people think about different issues if you don't interact in person with them. So this is the art, right? And this is, I think, what the academy is, right? All these ideas about social events that we have been talking about, all these ideas of interacting, networking, connecting, is because we want to know how the community think about issues. And that's why I think the academy is so important, and all this message by my predecessors, I think, is so important, right? Not because connecting is important because of the sake of connecting, it's important to get to know how people are thinking about issues, right? So what's the right empirical evidence? Right? That's a very hard answer, it doesn't have a mathematical answer. What's the theory contribution? Right? So these are issues that unless you have a lot of exposure, of course, writing, reading, and researching, of course, that's the most important thing. But on top of having these informal conversations that can happen at places like the academy, is why I think is the added value, right? So just I mean, that's the motivation for all the things that we are saying, and try not to be repetitive. Now, for this, right? So mistakes I've seen at the academy. Right? So not to do, and with this in mind is obvious, right? So not to do very clearly, you just focus on your presentation, you close down yourself in the hotel room to prepare for your presentation, to ace it, especially you're international and you don't speak English quite well, you are nervous, you just prepare for the presentation, you go to your paper session, you deliver, that's it, right? You don't talk to anybody else, you don't make the effort to talk to nobody else, maybe even you decide to go to do some tourism, right? That's a fantastic wasted opportunity. That the academy is a fantastic place to get to know how people think about what's important, what's not important, and what are the new things that people are exploring, investigating, and seeing the potential. So, I mean, my experience, sometimes there were projects that I thought they were fantastically interesting, and therefore talking to people in the community, you see they are a waste of time, right? So that's the not to do. Now, the to-dos and tips, and basically I think, if I'm not mistaken, everything has been said, so I will try to go fast or not repetitive, right? First, I mean, the PDWs, right? So this is a must for beginners, right? So a lot of the interaction happens in the academy, the early days of the conferences, in the PDWs and the consortium. That's the place to mingle, to find your colleagues, people that are at similar stages in your career, and be friends for life, as it has been said, right? So that's a must, the PDWs and the consortiums. On top, right, I also mentioned the social events that happen all around the academy in different flavors, right? It's a great chance to mingle, to meet people, to talk and discuss, right, informally. I'm repeating, right, but do not be shy, right? So we are all there for that at the academy, and therefore we are all willing to talk and interact and learn from each other. So don't be shy and don't hesitate in being proactive in meeting people in the community. Now, having said this, what's your community? Very importantly, also mentioned, I'm repeating as well, and my apologies, you have to identify what's your community. Right? So you go to different interest groups, nothing to do with each other, one to the other, it's harder for you to identify the people that you feel are closer to your research interests, in which you need to know the soft information of what's relevant, what's not, and what's the right way to approach our issues, right? More about this, maybe this has not been mentioned, right? So the regular paper sessions, the paper presentations standard, sometimes at the academy don't have a great attendance, but this is a great opportunity, right? Because if you prepare yourself well for the academy and you keep track of the people that are working things related to what you're doing, it's a fantastic way to go to these paper sessions. It's very easy to interact, maybe just doing questions, maybe interacting with the speaker, or just afterwards before people go for a coffee. Right? So precisely, it's a great place to go and find your favorite people in the community to interact, right? I'm checking my notes. Again, having said, right, don't hesitate if you see somebody going to the academy that you would like to meet, talk, or ask questions, write to them. And therefore, very likely, this person will tell you and will answer where they're going to be available and have some informal chat with you. Right? So don't be shy again. Now, finally, right? So all of this has been said, all this advice is linked to this idea of building this soft information of getting to know the key people in the community or how the community think about your particular issues, right? That has been my idea in trying to share these different tips that I think most of them have been said before. But when you go to the job market, right, if your goal is finding a job, so you're in the job market or finding the job market, I think the way to address people, the way to interact people is slightly different. Most of the schools I know, the job market is more structured, right? So basically, all the schools have a particular committee that decides who is going to interview and when, and people that interview people. So therefore, since the job market is so much well structured, if what you want to do is talk to somebody in a faculty in a particular place and tell them about you, about your research, therefore, the advice is to contact ex ante such that these people can refer you to the right persons to talk to because we are organized, right? So we divide our interviews, we divide our conversations, and we don't want to be repetitive, right? So of course, with your advisor or yourself, you can always talk to everybody about research. If you're specifically a link and you want to do your pitch about your job market, and as I said before, corner somebody 30 minutes talking about your thing, that's not advisable, right? So you can talk 1-2 minutes about your research and then deliver for future conversations. But your market usually, as I said, has a much more structured way to operate in most schools. And I don't want to be repetitive. Everything has been said. That's all for me. Looking forward for the Q&A. Thank you.
So, Juan, thank you so much for closing off the great presentations and for also bringing in this difference between the soft information that you get when you just want to enjoy the AOM, but or the more instrumental use of AOM as a job market candidate. And I've seen that we have some questions about that on the chat. So before I go to Q&A, I would kindly ask you if you are comfortable with turning on your video so we can take one selfie of our global community so we can use and share widely in the AOM website. So if that would be okay, it'll give us maybe some 5 seconds to turn on the cameras. And again, feel free to not to if you are not comfortable. Okay, let me just turn on my print screen camera here. There you go. 1 second. Okay, so I'm gonna do it in 3, 2, 3, 2, 1, smile. Perfect. Thank you very much. So now let's move on to the Q&A. I'm gonna put all our panelists as on spotlight, so you're gonna see them. Add to spotlight, Lourdes. And I think we had one first question. I'm gonna give you the option of asking the question yourself, or I can just ask for you. But we had a first question about the acronyms and how you can actually manage the large number of acronyms. If there's any particular point more specific to that, I think I'm not sure who was the person who asked it. So if you're free to unmute yourself, I just took notes here.
I think that was me.
Yes, go for it.
We've touched on some of them already. I think some of them were answered in the chat as well, which was useful. I think Louise did respond, which was helpful. But yeah, even sort of a follow-up to that is the different types of sessions. So just to understand, because some of the names of the sessions I'm just not clear on. There's plenaries and symposia and consortia and there's PDWs and etc. So some understanding of that would be helpful. Thank you.
I'll let the panelists take it away on what are the main types of sessions and what are the difference between them.
Should I volunteer some information, Thomaz? So I'm not organizing this year, which means, modern times may be different from when I organized. But I think there's, one way to think about them is how interactive they will be, and versus how large they will be. So PDWs and usually, for example, junior faculty and PhD student consortia would be very interactive. The PDWs are usually around some sort of learning, to say a learning goal, either that you will learn some sort of method or software, or that you literally, apologies for the noise in London, or that you will, debate some sort of topic. It will be interactive, and there's some sort of learning that the community gets out of it. Again, the consortia is usually a full day, and sometimes you get the journal editors, and there's learning going on through, right? There's tips and suggestions. The sessions usually have like a plenary. In my experience, is huge, and someone at the front is sort of leading the presentation. Someone like David Teese or Kathy Eisenhardt. Someone with a huge career that would be leading our, their thought leaders, and they would be leading the conversation that day. Symposia are usually has a panel of presenters that have something in common and that have organized together. For the commonalities, in paper sessions are actually just independent papers that again have something in common. That's why the program chair decided to put it that way, but they don't have to jointly organize their common ground.
And I'll just connect this to the next question by Mohsin on some sections having being large lectures. Usually that is not the case. So most sessions, the paper sessions, are in very small, let's say classroom size, with an attendance of anything in between only the speakers, maybe all of them, but not necessarily, and some like 10 guests, to the large plenaries that Lourdes said, that you have hundreds of people. So it varies a lot, but most of the sessions are of the small type. So I just want to address that because I think it can connect to Mohsin's question. And there was a question also by Tomoko, if you want to mute yourself and ask your question about how the job, like the year before the job market.
Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, I'm receiving emails about career fairs from AOM, and I'm not yet on the job market, but I am curious about using the AOM to just get information about different universities and potential workplaces. So my question was, if you're not on the job market, should you be joining these career fairs just as an opportunity to get to know different universities? Or is it way too late and you're supposed to do this more informally at this point in time? Thank you.
If you want me to pitch in an idea, okay. I think that if there's a general event about careers, I think it would be very useful for you to attend and collect data. Sorry, it's London. And sort of collect information. That said, some of the career fairs at the Academy are about literally interviewing, especially for smaller universities that don't have the budget to be flying everyone around the world to their universities. They would rather, you're already in the conference, they'll interview you there. And at that point, you really need to be interviewing if you are trying to take their job posting. Otherwise, right, it's sort of, I don't know, shortchanging their effort. But if there is an open event about careers, you can definitely do that. Or if there's a university that you're very keen on, or some sort of region that you're very keen on, then you should definitely try to find the faculty and, go to their paper session, see them present, approach them at the end.
Yeah, so see, if I can pitch in, right? So I'm complementing what Lourdes said and links to something I said in my presentation. So if you are not in the job market, it's a fantastic opportunity to get all this soft information around. So general events, general conferences, something that's linked not specifically to the actual process of job interviewing. Job interviewing, right, and the particularities of what has to be done. Basically, the thing is you contact all places you're interested and ask them. Sometimes they have an open call, sometimes they don't, and ask them what's the process. And the process usually have this formal set of interviews in which you actually are being already sort of selected to see you have a right fit with the institution, right? So there's a difference in the first year. You're not in the job market. Get a whole talk to everybody informally. Get information, paper sessions, topics, things, right? It's going to be different next year.
I fully agree with everything that was said, and Tomoko, just to build on what was said, there are also many universities that are not all, but some universities organize some like drinks parties. As Thomaz said at the beginning, when I went to my first AOM, I was not aware of this. But this is beyond the fact that it's a party. It's, I think, more importantly, a good opportunity to discuss with faculty from a certain university and have those, as Juan said, this soft information. And this is better to get it actually the year before you are on the job market, because when you're on the job market, you know, this is not perhaps not the best moment to really have this more like open information.
Hi, Cedric. Sorry to intervene. What was the event's name that you said that the universities organize?
So usually they are called parties or drinks, and they are a little bit. They are not really or necessarily published on the official website. So honestly, I don't even know how you get this information. It's kind of like you know, through the grapevine or. But yeah, they are basically every evening. There's like several parties that are organized by universities.
Thank you. You answered my follow-up question. I was going to ask, how do we get to know about these events?
So I just posted there's usually a hidden benefactor whose names I will not mention, who organized a sheet, and that's the one that Andy has just shared. So information flows. We still have some 7 minutes, so please, if you just want to add another questions, please take it away. Otherwise, I have questions of my own that it could be helpful.
I have a question for all our panelists. So I want you to imagine it's your very first AOM and you don't know anyone there, and your goal is to go there and make one legitimate friend that you will keep in touch with later on. What is the one thing you would recommend doing if that was your goal?
So can I start with, and as I said, I mean, joy is user-centric, and I think everything else is also user-centric. In my case, I guess I am an acquired taste. And so if I want to make one friend at the conference, I feel like the time to meet people would actually benefit me. So I would actually join a consortium. I would join a full day for PhD students or for junior faculty, and then just stay the full day there. That is the best, in my type of personality, that is the best way in which I can assure myself to live with a contact that is gonna be interested in staying in a conversation with me long term.
I fully agree with Lourdes. That's exactly what I was going to say too.
I will just ask, I will add my own perspective on this one, if the panelists do not mind. I would believe that I'm also an acquired taste, but I would probably try to get someone that I know to introduce me to someone they know that share common interest. So be your supervisor, be it someone you already have a friend, and you really want to know another person. I would just ask to be introduced. That helped me tremendously in my first AOM, and actually eventually led to a paper that got published. And it was just a member of my dissertation committee who thought, oh, Thomaz, I think you should know so-and-so because you see research the same way. And then it was an easy introduction, it was like, oh, so-and-so, meet Thomaz, Thomaz, meet so-and-so, discuss, the person leaves, and you just talk. But then you already have this let's say this middle person making the connection that eventually led to a very fruitful friendship and co-authorship. I think we have space for one more question. And if there's no more question, I'll ask for one final remark from the panelists, and then we can close it off because we are almost at time. Good, perfect. Then one last word of advice from each of the panelists before we're closing off. So let's go the same order. So Cedric, Leandro, Lourdes, and Juan.
Well, actually, I don't know if I have an advice. I'm going to tell you like what I've learned today, and actually I've learned from the other panelists, and so this is great. And some things that I never thought so much about it. But for example, like Lourdes' comment on the fact that search for complementers, I think it's a great comment. Never thought about it in this way, but I will certainly take this perspective, or both about like what Juan and Leandro talk about like what the community learns, and really understanding also how like the community as a whole think about the topic is I think something that I will take from this panel.
My takeaway is just like try to enjoy the whole event too. You know, like do your best effort to not transform it only in work, you know, like learn a lot, interact with people, meet people, but also try to enjoy it.
Lourdes?
So I think, and this is probably sharing way too much information now, but when I was a student, I had to make one of my essays on vocational psychology, the vocational psychology literature behind academics. And one of the findings was that we score above average in obsessive behavior. And apparently some of the consequences of that is exactly what you saw on the Big Bang Theory television show, which is we don't reach out, we think too much about reaching out, we interpret too much whether people said yes or no, bought me a coffee but not a full breakfast, you know, said they would meet, but after. And so, I mean, I do think that, again, it's a matching process and you have to try to match more than once, which means just approach people. If they have the time, they'll talk to you. If they don't, you know, if your email gets buried in their inbox before the conference, then just reach out again in the conference. If they say they will talk to you, but not in the conference, email them a month later. I mean, it's just, you know, take the most benevolent interpretation of interactions and then just network what you're trying to get done.
Okay, that's my turn, right? So I consistent with what Lourdes said, my advice, don't be shy. Right? So don't be shy in interacting with people, especially, and the best way is asking questions. I said, we all love, we're intellectuals, right? So we all love what we are doing. We spend a lot of time thinking hard, and we all like a lot to talk about our issues, about our interest in our community. So don't be shy, especially, and the good way to interact and acquire all this type of information we have been talking about. The best way is ask questions, and people are always willing to think with you and trying to answer them, and we like it, right? So that would be my final remark.
Perfect. So with that, I'd like to thank all the panelists, Cedric, Leandro, Lourdes, Juan. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Andy, for leading the Membership Engagement Committee. And thank you to all of you who join us early in the morning, late in the evening, midday. We look forward to welcome you at AOM. Go to all the STR events that you plan to, because we learned that you have to plan, but also join us for the fun running activities, breakfast, and parties at the end. So thank you so much.